Hi, and welcome to our very last video discussion topic of the semester, vitamins and minerals. So we will start off with a recap of stress and bone strength, talk about some trace minerals, cooking vegetables, and how to add antioxidants to your plate. I would first like to start off with a joke. I've been spending a lot of time with little children, and this is our favorite house joke. What did the octopus say to his girlfriend? Ready for the punchline? I want to hold your hand, 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 hand. Ba-dum-bum. Anyway, I hope that brought a quick little smile to your face. Okay, in the last video's devotional, I briefly talked about the Biosphere 2 project where the trees all snapped and collapsed under their own weight. They never had been exposed to wind and were not capable of withstanding stress. Think about your bones. What sort of wind, in quotes, are you exposing your body to on a regular basis so that it does not respond similarly to the trees in the Biosphere 2 project and collapse under its own weight? So in this class, I try to repetitively remind you about quality of life. So quality of life, that's my go-to phrase. And in that, I slip phrase tiny habits. So really small changes that aren't drastic, that you're not going to be failing if you don't accomplish them, that aren't going to alter your life in a way that you're incapable of doing it. So what are some tiny habits? And we've talked about this in most of our discussions. So what are things that you're currently and regularly doing? And how might you make that just a bit different? How might you make a few small changes here and there so that you're applying a little bit more stress to your body? We don't want to plateau in our level of physical activity right now, especially not during this time of quarantine, and we also do not want to regress. So make sure that you're taking time each day to do something active for your current health and also for your future health. So minerals, trace elements. We will cover iron in depth a bit, but I wanted you to see that there are other trace minerals. Zinc, you can see what zinc does, copper, iodine, selenium, manganese. They all have different things that they do within our body. So if we were to be in class and expanding our discussions, we would talk about iodine and how they prevent goiters and things that we don't see here in the United States very often, but in countries where they're growing crops in sand and in non-nutritious soil, you still sometimes see goiters, which can be prevented with the consumption of iodine. Fluorine, chromium, and molybdenum. Fluorine is considered one of the greatest 21st century achievements of fluoridating water. It's also something that is considered a government conspiracy, so maybe on your own you'd like to look up fluoridation of water. It's much different in Europe than it is here in the United States, something we would have talked about if we were all together. However, let's jump to iron. So when iron-rich foods are eaten, it is absorbed into proteins and it helps proteins take in, carry, and release oxygen throughout the body. So when we are low in iron, our body is really tired because we're not getting oxygen to be able to go throughout the places that it needs to within our body. So hemi-iron comes from animal foods. There are two types of iron, hemi-iron and non-hemi-iron. It comes from animal foods and it's easily absorbed into our body. So meat is a great source of hemi-iron, but it's also, remember, a source of more calories, more saturated fats, and cholesterol. So consider that if you're trying to get iron, it's a great way to get iron, but then you're also getting some of the other things. If you already have enough iron, getting more hemi-iron is going to continue to stock up. Compared then to plant-based sources of iron, so non-hemi, if you already have enough iron, non-hemi-iron will pass through your body. So non-hemi-iron comes from plant foods primarily, and is less easily absorbed into your body. So if you're strictly or severely anemic, your doctor would probably suggest, if you're trying to do it in food consumption, that you consume a steak compared to consuming some of these examples. So they're fantastic examples, but you have to eat more because your body's not going to absorb the non-hemi-iron quite as well. But options are, for non-hemi, legumes, seeds, and nuts, cereals, dried fruits, and vegetables. And as a pop quiz, what vitamin is a complementary vitamin to iron that allows us to absorb more. If you don't remember, go back and look in your notes. So iron deficiency anemia is the most common worldwide deficiency. This is one that hits primarily females, children as well. It causes fatigue, so a lack of oxygen going throughout your body, weakness, shortness of breath. So vitamin C, that was the answer to the last slide, helps you to absorb iron. So there are iron fortified cereals. Remember, top it with strawberries, have a glass of orange juice, meat, add some tomatoes or green peppers, and I'm not sure how much you could get, but cooking with an iron skillet, you're going to be getting small amounts of iron in the method of cooking. So speaking of cooking, is there a difference when cooking vegetables? So what are the best methods of cooking so that you can retain their nutritional qualities as well as possible? So if you had to choose the best way to possible to cook a vegetable, the answer would be the way that leaches the least amount of nutrients out, right? So how would you choose to do this? What method of cooking would you do this? So the cooking method that best retains nutrients is one that cooks quickly and it heats food for the shortest amount of time, and it uses as little liquid as possible. So the longer that a vitamin, remember a vitamin, it has carbon, so it's a living thing, an organic compound, and so it can change and be altered in its chemical structure compared to a mineral. So if you know that a vitamin is deeply impacted by heat, what is the fastest method possible? So let's go through some of the methods of cooking vegetables. So roasting, broiling, and baking. So these methods don't have a significant effect on most vitamins and minerals, with the exception of vitamin B. It's not the quickest. It's not the easiest method of cooking. It takes more time and more prep. It's one of my favorite methods. This is a picture I got from the internet, but I often will do this where I will look up how long each vegetable needs to cook, and I'll put the one in that needs to cook the longest. Peppers are probably not the right option, but say Brussels sprouts or beets or something that's kind of dense. And then while I'm waiting for that, I'll chop up the next vegetable, add that in 5 minutes later, the next one 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, and add the one that doesn't need to cook that much. And then kind of mix it all together and add whatever kind of a dressing or sauce or hummus or something, and it's so delicious. Yes, it takes a much longer time because you're prepping a lot, and it cooks for a while. I mean, maybe at 400 degrees for 20 to 45 minutes, but it's a delicious method of cooking vegetables. Okay, stir frying. So stir frying is done with less oil compared to frying, which generally uses more oil. Deep frying then is generally breaded foods or similar to breaded foods, or can be breaded foods, with even more oils. So the vegetables in stir frying are cooked in a saucepan over medium to high heat with some oil. So the cooking time is shorter than broiling, baking, and no water is used. Remember, water, the exposure to hot water is going to leach some of the vitamins. So some foods are more nutrient dense when they're not cooked. Others are more nutrient dense when they are cooked. So you can see some of the examples. Bringing out certain vitamins and minerals depending on if they're eaten raw or if they're eaten cooked. So this is a fine method, right? You're not using a ton of oil and you're not cooking it for long periods of time. Boiling. So boiling vegetables of the cruciferous family, if you remember from your reading, the cruciferous family like cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and such, is going to significantly reduce their anti-cancerous properties. So the length of time that they're exposed to in hot water. So they're directly exposed to the hot water. So if you do boil your vegetables, you could, or it has been suggested to save the water and to use it for soup broth or a soup base, as that water then has a lot of nutrients if you've got the lid on especially. Or you could even let that water cool down and the next day you could pour it into your garden so that you're not wasting water. So you can see here some of the examples of how much is leached out in the boiling method. Steaming. So steaming is similar to boiling, except there's only about 1 inch of water in the pan, and then you use a steamer. This is an exact picture of the steamer that I have. This is a picture from Amazon. I bought it in 2013, and it's fantastic, and it still works, and I really, really enjoy it. It's a silicone steamer. It's pretty amazing. But this is a fantastic method because the water is not directly in contact with the vegetables. And you've got your lid on, and so you get the water boiling, and then you turn it low, and so it's not at as high of a heat, and you're not reducing the nutrient content by as much. So you're using a lid to speed up the cooking time, and you could even leave the peel on to help reduce nutrient loss. Microwave. Now this is one that most people say, oh no, and I think we've talked about this a bit. I'm putting the website here if you're interested. Harvard Health has some research-based information on microwaves. But isn't this amazing? Short cooking time, reduced exposure to heat, preserves nutrients in microwave foods. So it's not being exposed to heat for a really long time, and it's not being exposed to water. So some studies actually show that the microwave is one of the best methods for cooking vegetables because you're able to preserve the antioxidant levels, which is, I know, against what a lot of us grew up in regards to hearing that microwaves are dangerous. But the take-home message is this. Eat fruits and vegetables, right? It's much better to eat a boiled vegetable that has leached out a percentage of its vitamins and minerals than it is to eat a refined processed food that could stay on a shelf for a really long time and doesn't have any microbes, has very little nutrients. So eat a variety of fruits and vegetables in a variety of ways. Cooked sometimes, raw sometimes, boiled sometimes, steamed sometimes, microwave, sauteed, in soups. So many options, making salads, grilling, doing different things. Should be the take-home message rather than trying to remember which is best. So what should we eat? So read on page 151, if you remember, about whole foods. So our body can't necessarily tell the difference between natural and synthetic supplements. However, we don't necessarily know what we're missing out when taking a synthetic supplement because of all of the unknown phytochemicals in whole and natural foods. So vitamins are essentially a life insurance, right? When we're not consuming proper foods and nutritious foods, they fill in the gaps and the holes and whatnot. But what are we missing in the phytochemicals and the whole and natural foods? So let's take a look at an apple. So if you're consuming an apple and researchers want to take an apple, what's in an apple, and create a supplement so that you can just pop in a supplement, what is actually in that apple and how are they reacting and responding to the various things in an apple? So let's look at these next several slides and look at all of the things that are found within an apple in the chemical level. Oh my goodness, that was a lot, right? So it's really hard to encapsulate all that is within an apple because we don't necessarily know how everything reacts and pairs and combines and complements different things. So eating whole foods is really fantastic. So the takeaway message with this is eat food, eat real food. Okay, coming back to antioxidants. So remember, there is no evidence that large doses of vitamins can prevent aging or certain diseases. However, diets high in antioxidants should help prevent or at least prolong some diseases, so cardiovascular diseases, some certain types of cancer, other negative ailments. So antioxidants are able to contribute an electron to a free radical without becoming a free radical themselves, without becoming unbalanced themselves. So you don't have to munch on boring, bland food. You don't have to become a rabbit to get antioxidants. So what are some creative ways to get the most bang for your bite? So if we were in class together, I would have you write down what you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner yesterday. And then on my next 5 or 6 or 7 slides or so, I have some ideas for how to add antioxidants to your meal. And I would then have you go back to look at what you had consumed, and I would say, okay, how could you have added some antioxidants to this? So here are some breakfast suggestions. A small glass of 100% juice is a perfect energizing start to your day. You can vary the juices to balance your nutrient intake, to balance your taste desires. You could try the usual orange juice, you could try grapefruit juice, you could try some unusual ones, pomegranate, blueberry juice, or such. If you're making eggs, why don't you try topping them with your favorite salsa? If you're making an omelet, why don't you add sauteed mushrooms or onions or red and yellow bell peppers or tomatoes to add some antioxidants? Other breakfast options. What about sliced peaches or bananas or strawberries, other fresh fruit on your cereal? What about mixing dried cranberries or raisins into your oatmeal? If you're making yogurt or having yogurt, you could toss some nutmeg into it, or you could toss some fruit into your yogurt to make a breakfast smoothie. What about when you're cooking at home? How could you add some antioxidants? If you are grilling, and I know some of you enjoy grilling a lot, why don't you try to thread some pineapple or nectarines, bell peppers, mushrooms, cherry tomatoes in with your chicken and steak kebabs? If you like soups, why don't you add a can of peas or a can of vegetables or frozen vegetables to your soups? If you're making a vegetable or a pizza, why don't you add some vegetables to it? You can top it with spinach or herbs like basil and tarragon. You can add bell peppers, mushrooms, broccoli, maybe even some pineapple. Okay, here's one that sometimes is controversial. Instead of spaghetti with pasta, have you ever tried spaghetti squash instead? It's so fantastic and delicious and also unusual. What if you are eating lots of nachos and cheese? Try to add beans or other antioxidants. And if you are living off of Top Ramen and you think to yourself, man, how could I make this more healthy? Why don't you add frozen peas or carrots or something to it to at least get some vegetables in with your faux noodles? Other home cooked ideas. Why don't you try packing pasta or potato salads with extra vegetables? You can make it more colorful. You could perk up a dull green salad by adding nuts or dried cranberries. You could add small orange slices, pomegranate seeds, apple slices, red beans, any kind of beans, jarred artichokes. Or a few times a week, what if, while you were watching Netflix or Disney Plus, if you chopped a bunch of vegetables, you washed them, chopped them, separated a bunch of vegetables into separate containers, and then throughout the week you already had pre-chopped, pre-prepared carrots, mushrooms, broccoli, bell peppers, celery, zucchini, whatever you're doing, that you have them ready. So you could toss them onto your pizza or onto your salad or onto a sandwich or onto whatever you're making. You can also do this with fruit, and you can pre-freeze it so that it's ready to go when you're needing fruit. Okay, some more cooking options. So adding more vegetables to your pasta sauce, adding fresh herbs. You could start a little herb garden in your kitchen window and adding them toward the end of cooking. Learning to use with herbs, to cook with herbs and spices. A lot of herbs and spices are really high in antioxidants. If you're using jarred or canned spaghetti sauce, what if you blend in a bunch of greens? The other day we had spaghetti and I blended in a bunch of Swiss chard, and the kids didn't even know they were having Swiss chard while we were having spaghetti and meatballs. Out and about. If you are getting yogurt while you're out and about, you could add mixed berries or nuts into it. You could keep an old tin or a bag filled with nuts. That way when you've got the munchies, you could snack on some nuts. You could add a variety of dried fruit to your trail mix. You could swap out French fries for a side salad or steamed vegetables. You can even ask for extra vegetables on your hamburger or sandwich. If you are out and about, and I know that we're not out and about too often nowadays, but and it's lunchtime, rather than going through a drive-through, you could try going to a grocery store instead, or to a Trader Joe's, because Trader Joe's has some fantastic lunch options, and you could pick up a prepared meal or something at a grocery store. Antioxidants and drinking them. You could brew your own tea. Tea is a great source of catechins, potent antioxidants. Green tea has more of these antioxidants than black tea, but both are better. And brewing it at your home is better. You're not leaching out, you're not losing as many of the antioxidants as it sits there for a long time. You could try sipping on a variety of vegetable juices. You could add vegetables to your fruit juices. And you can spice up your coffees and teas and lattes and such with antioxidants, ground cloves and cinnamon. And what we all like the best, desserts. How could you add antioxidants to your desserts? So you could top ice cream with berries, with pomegranate seeds. You could freeze your own fruits, like I said before, so that they're ready and available. Frozen grapes are amazing. Frozen blueberries are so delicious. When I was in college, I used to chop a bunch of kiwis and freeze them. And then in the morning, I'd pack my lunch. And by the time it was lunch, they had mostly unfrozen and they tasted like a smoothie, and it was so delicious. You could make your own ice pops from 100% fruit juice. You could be the sophisticated person and you could dip your fruits into dark chocolates, which are high in antioxidants. You could indulge yourself in small pieces of dark chocolate. Research shows that antioxidants are capable of lowering LDLs, therefore improving your risk, decreasing your risk of cardiovascular diseases. So those are some ways that we can add some antioxidants into our diet. Let's do a quick review then of vitamins and minerals so that you can prep for what will be your second exam. So what type of iron is found in animal-derived foods? What type of iron is found in plant-derived foods? And which one do we seem to absorb better? So remember, hemi-iron comes from animal foods, non-hemi from plant foods, and we will absorb more rapidly and in more quantities the animal-based irons. What are some sources of minerals? Where do minerals come from, and where do we consume them in our diet? When we eat anything that's a plant, when we eat anything that's an animal, when we take supplements, and a lot of drinking water as well. So dairy sources, green leafy vegetables, fortified products are our biggest sources of minerals. Okay, on this one, we'll start with vitamin A. What colors, what types of foods are we getting some vitamin A's? So remember orange, think of carrots, think of rabbits, good eyesight. Red veggies, deep green veggies. B, our beans, our nuts, our greens, or our plant sources of vitamin B. Our meat is a great source of vitamin B, and B12 only comes from animal products. Vitamin C, orange again. So we think of vitamin C coming from oranges and from strawberries, and also most vegetables are high in vitamin C. Vitamin D comes from the sunlight, also from dairy products and from fortified foods. And vitamin E coming from oils, vegetable oils, also whole grain has that vitamin E in the wheat germ. What is the primary cause of inadequate vitamin levels in our diet? Why do some people have really low levels of vitamins in the food that they're choosing? And the answer is it's what you choose to eat. So if you choose to eat potatoes and starchy foods and white rice, and that's all you're eating, then you're going to lessen the amount of nutrients that you're getting. Water-soluble vitamins. Which one are the water-soluble vitamins? The B complex and vitamin C. Fat-soluble vitamins. Which ones are those? A, D, E, and K. And remember, it all comes down to quality of life. The choices that you make now are going to impact the type of future that you have later on.